Is now starting.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Three Keys to School Board Success, another subscriber-led webinar series by Board Docs. Really excited to have Redondo Beach Unified School District in California joining us today. We're going to have a few webinar announcements before we do introductions. Just want to let everyone know the webinar will last approximately 50 to 60 minutes today. Please ensure that you mute all of your lines. If you do have questions, please send them. Love to hear from you. There's a Q&A box that you can actually put questions into, and we'll address those both handwritten and also verbally as we go through the session. The session will be recorded and shared along with slides and emailed after the webinar today. All right, very excited to get started. My name is Tom Duncan. I will be moderating today, and I am from Board Docs, and I have three fantastic panelists I'd love to introduce. First, I want to start with our subscriber, Ricardo Gallegos. He's the executive assistant to the board and superintendent at Redondo Beach Unified School District. Ricardo, it's fantastic to have you today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
Great. Excellent. I'd also like to introduce our Senior Director of Customer Success, and that is David Atkins. David, pleasure to have you.
Delighted to be here, Tom. Thank you.
Wonderful. And then we have Ari Ioannidis. He's the President and CEO of Board Docs. Ari, always a pleasure.
Thrilled to be here, Tom. Thanks.
Wonderful. Great. So, Ricardo, let's start off by talking about a little bit about Redondo Beach Unified School District so we can give some of the attendees who aren't familiar with your district some information.
Okay, so we're a medium-sized school district in comparison to other districts in California. We have 8 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, 1 high school, 1 continuation, and 1 adult school. And we serve approximately 95 to 10,000 students. And as you can see in our mission statement, we're dedicated to providing every student the knowledge and skills necessary to succeed in a global society today and in the future. And with that comes a lot of technology with the current changes. You know, our board is a board of 5, and you know we have 2 board meetings a month, and this is the system that we chose in our district to use for our board meetings.
That's great. Thanks for shedding some light on your district. Wonderful district, great location, obviously, and love to hear what you all are doing with technology there. So, Ricardo, a few years back, you had a kind of a moment where the district and yourself were looking at your board portal solution, and you're asking yourself, "Hey, are we in the best situation possible?" What was going on that led you to explore Board Docs?
So we were utilizing a different vendor for our services, and one of the problems that we encountered was a lack of consistency in functionality of the program. Oftentimes we would find ourselves going to hard copies because we couldn't rely on the program that we were using. And in addition to that, the customer service was a little difficult to deal with. It was difficult to get a live person on the phone to speak with regarding the issue. They would always request that you email the issue, and most of us know that when we have an issue, sometimes it's pretty lengthy or hard to explain in a written form. So it was getting to a point where it was a little frustrating to have to email concerns, and then sometimes you would get a response within an hour. Other times it would take a day. And when you're in a crunch, you are looking for a solution immediately or as soon as possible. And the other thing was ease of use for all users. We were looking for something that was very intuitive and that was just time efficient for all users and submitters, as well as for the public and the board during board meetings.
Ricardo, thanks for sharing. I know the attendees out there can probably resonate with some of those challenges and also some of the goals that you had there on what you were looking for. So you go through a process of reviewing board docs. You end up making that change. Why don't you take the attendees through that journey, that transition from your other solution to board docs?
So we reached out to Board Docs, and we were a little familiar with Board Docs. I believe there was a different version that we had seen before. And when I reached out and I I inquired about getting some information. They were very happily accommodating to us and provided us options for viewing the new system. And I believe we did it via webinar. And we found that, just the setup was exactly what we were looking for. And the things that I mentioned earlier, as far as the use, the ease of use was right on target to what we were looking for. Now, when we started looking at the implementation process to make that transition, we were actually very surprised to see how accommodating BoardDocs was to our needs. So it did take a couple of board meetings for us to fully transition into the BoardDocs system, but I can tell you that everyone was very happy. The transition happened, the training happened within a 2-day period, and I don't think our sessions lasted more than an hour to 2 hours per group. So once your facilitator or your moderator, which is those of us who manage the agenda, become trained on the system, which is very self-explanatory, it's very simple to use. Once you are a pro at getting through that process, the rest of it is just a breeze. So our transition was very simple. We just selected a date and we just went for it. We didn't do it right away after the training. We did it, I think, a month after. And that was just for in-house reasons.
Ricardo, thanks for sharing that. It sounds very typical to a BoardDocs implementation, and glad to hear that went well. I think a great segue right now would to have David Atkins talk a little bit about some of the challenges, just so our attendees can hear. What are some of the challenges, David, in overcoming implementation and support challenges that we hear from people that are moving to BoardDocs, and then from there we'll go ahead and hear from Ricardo as well as we talk about some of these things.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, I would love to talk about that. There are a lot of challenges I think that districts face when they're trying to implement new technologies. And, as you step back and look at the role of IT in a general sense, I think school districts seem to be facing, what seems like an ever-increasing demand on their internal IT staff, largely due to their responsibilities to support both enterprise-level systems and also all the student activities that surround the use of technology. And so, that can be a pretty heavy burden, I think, for small IT teams at school districts. It's true that many school districts report that they simply do not have the level of IT staffing necessary to effectively support the full scope of their organization's needs from a technology standpoint. So as a result, a very large percentage of school districts have a difficult time, I think, implementing new technologies due to their resource constraints, their manpower shortages, which is, a pretty daunting challenge, especially when they're wanting to stay current with technology. So, really, the reality is that the needs of most school districts are not unlike that of large public or private organizations, except that everything has to be done with less people and less funding, right? So that's immensely challenging, I think, to school districts, and it's increasing the burdens imposed on IT staff. And so you add to that, the fact that large-scale software or software-as-a-service implementations often bring a lot of complexity in terms of the implementation process. That can make implementations extremely challenging and extremely time-consuming. So, Tom, I thought I'd pause here and see if there are any additional comments from the panel on this. Or, Ricardo, if you have anything that you wanted to add.
Yes, I actually do. When we first looked at the program, one of the components was the IT area of the system. So I'm not an IT. I'm not familiar with what the needs are from the district in order for us to be able to operate and function properly. So I contacted our chief technology officer, and he contacted BoardDocs, and basically he just established that we would be able to function properly with the system. And I actually invited him to join us to the webinar, and he had another meeting. But one of the things that he did say to me was that he really wouldn't have much to say because he really hasn't done a whole lot. There hasn't been a need for him to do anything because the system is so reliable and pretty self-operating. I mean, on our end, and so that is just a big kudos to Board Docs.
You know, Ricardo, that's one of the things we hear from folks on the IT side is BoardDocs is one of their favorite vendors because of that fact that they don't have to babysit, they don't have to manage it because of the great support staff that David and team runs and because of the ease of use that you mentioned. So one of the things, Ricardo, you talked about was you're looking for something that was easy to use. One of the things, though, folks don't think about entirely is, am I looking to invest and partner with the best support staff, right? And David, I know that you have some thoughts on what districts want from their technology partners, specifically around ease of use and support.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. When we consider what school districts want from the technology partners, I would say near the top of that list are compelling solutions that, are reliable, that meet their needs, that are easy to learn and use, some of the points we've already discussed. This is particularly true, of course, when districts are determining how best to create and distribute their board materials or to conduct their important board meetings. They want those products that they receive to be delivered by knowledgeable individuals who have a proven track record, who care about the success of their organizations, and who are committed to successful implementations. I think, Tom, coupled with that, they want and need timely delivery of training and support whenever they need it to help ensure that they can be successful with the solutions that they're implementing. And then, finally, I might add that they want effective problem resolution when there are questions or challenges that must be addressed. They want to be able to know that they can reach out and get those questions and those problems addressed effectively when they're using a service. So, maybe I'll pause here again and just defer to the panel if there are any additional comments on this.
Yeah, Ricardo, I know that we've talked about some of your early experiences with timely responses. Maybe you can elaborate on that, your experience there.
Yes, one of the things that stands out on this slide for me is the word solid, and that's how I would describe Board Docs as far as my experience or our experience in Redondo Beach. The response time when you call, there really is not one. You just call and you get somebody live to assist you with whatever it is the issue is. It could be something as simple as your text is different than a different item, and they'll help you resolve that, to a little more complex issue with connectivity or logging in issues of that sort. But I can tell you that every time I've called, which has probably been about 2 or 3 times in the last couple of years, it's been maybe about a 5-minute phone call, if that. So the reliability of resolving issues is right on, and that's why the word solid stands out for me. And I don't have any complaints whatsoever on any concerns that I've had to call in or to wait on a response. It gets taken care of on the spot, and more often than not, when you call, they may already be aware of the issue, and they will let you know that they're working on a fix. It's not like they're trying to hide, we're perfect. We don't. That they understand that an issue is going to come up, and they will let you know, we are aware of this, and we're working on a fix, but this is how we're going to get you operating today so that you can function for your meeting and be prepared.
Well, that's great feedback, and also people. When districts are evaluating, the one thing they look at most intensely is that board portal. How does it work? Can they envision themselves using it? But remember, part of that ROI is this piece, right? The ability to make sure that when you call in, you get someone live. When you have a support person that can actually fix that problem on the call. That all goes into your experience overall. Great. One of the challenges, David, that you brought up was the implementations for a lot of IT districts, for IT folks in the district. It can be a little daunting. People think, oh, this is going to take a long time. Maybe you can expand on how Board Docs makes those extremely efficient.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. I'll start by saying that one of the key points I wanted to mention here is that with Board Docs, you don't have to undergo, a complex technology implementation like you do with many other solutions that you may implement. There are no components that you have to install or babysit or maintain. You simply log in and you go to work in the system. And the other thing too that's noteworthy to mention is that the implementation that you receive is highly streamlined. There are a series of emails and calls that you receive to help you prepare for your training and the subsequent rollout of the system to your staff at your organization. The approach to training too is very much hands-on. So we teach the key staff members who are tasked with publishing content how to effectively build their agendas and how to add in their supporting resources and content. And that's all done in a hands-on manner with a coach in the room to guide them through that process. And then when it comes to training the board members, that training is typically conducted in an hour or less in a mock meeting setting, with each member at the helm of their own device that entire time, so they can learn by performing the actual tasks, and so they can practice with the system with an expert present to help guide them in their use of it. We found it to be very, very effective. And then one of the things that I think Ricardo mentioned early on is that they were able to use the system within a relatively short amount of time. And really what we've discovered is that many organizations find that they can use the system at a board meeting even the night of their training. Right? They feel so confident in their ability to master the system and use it to view their board materials that, when asked, well, when do you want to get started? The answer is, we want to get started tonight. So it's really that easy. I mean, the system is easy enough to use. The guidance that you receive is so comprehensive that you can be ready to go from the outset after you receive your training, which I think is a very compelling aspect of the implementation that we provide.
Yeah,
so,
David,
again, Tom, Ricardo, I'll pause here for additional comment.
Yeah, I've seen that being on trainings on site, just the confidence level of, hey, were we using this tonight, right? For the board, even from the board members, which is great. Ricardo, I know you had some thoughts on your specific implementation.
Yes, as was mentioned earlier, this is a web-based system, so you can pretty much access it anywhere you have internet access. And I can tell you that I've actually managed an agenda from Cancun, Mexico once, and that was pretty awesome. And when we did our training, I'm going to go into our training process. So we actually trained with Martha, and she was fantastic. So I'm going to share a little bit. It's going to be take a little bit of time, but I wanted to just kind of go through the steps that we went through with Martha. She reached out to us when we knew we were going with the system and she was going to organize our training. She asked us for a couple of our past agendas so that she can look at how our agenda flows and our setup, our templates. And I have to say that she formatted our board docs right on. I mean, it was a perfect copy of what we had been doing before. So your template isn't going to change. There may be like a little tweak here and there that you may have to do to accommodate a certain part of a format that your board is used to, but it's all doable, and they will find a fix for you to have that available. And our training happened over a 1.5 day period. The first day was strictly moderators, which was myself and Rebecca, who was my coworker and my backup, and they pretty much train you on the front side and the back side of the system, so that when people call you, you know exactly what they're talking about. And I'll tell you that I'm so used to not getting any phone calls from submitters that sometimes when they're trying to explain something to me, I have to go down to their desk to view it because I don't see that screen that they're looking at. But once I see it, I remember, and it's like, oh, okay, this is where you need to go. And it's very simple. The half day was the training for submitters and for their superiors, and that's kind of where we explained their approval trees and how that system would operate. And then the last part of the day was the board, and that is correct. The training was probably no more than an hour for the board, and pretty much they're viewing and just teaching them how to access information that's published. So I do have to say that the training is extremely efficient. It really is. And the hands-on approach to the training is right on, and it gets you very comfortable with the system where you're actually excited about using it. And in a while, I'll show you some of the features that I like on the system and that I often use.
Well, thanks, Ricardo. That's a great visual and an understanding of the implementation for the attendees out there. Now, speaking of the implementation, David, I know that there's a lot of work that goes on before your team comes on site, and I love that Ricardo mentioned Martha by name. That's the kind of personal relationships that are built here. But David, maybe you can talk about the implementation process and professional services leading up to that on site.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom, and I appreciate Ricardo's comments. It's a good segue into this part of my part of the presentation. You know, for us, the customer experience really is paramount. We want everyone who learns to use the system to be successful in every respect, and we're going to do all that is necessary to ensure that you're delighted with our services, not only throughout the implementation, but also during your post-training engagements with our support team. Our efforts are truly focused on providing a five-star experience each time you reach out to us. And of course, we want you to be completely satisfied with the service that you receive. So Ricardo mentioned this, and you know, really, we go about it in this way to ensure that your experience is specifically tailored to your needs. What your assigned implementation specialist does is he or she learns about your organization's workflows. They learn about your agenda styles and your preferences prior to ever coming on site for training. And then they come prepared to have meaningful conversations with the stakeholders throughout your organization to ensure the success of each individual who will be using the system going forward. And additionally, you know, one of the things I think that's really important to mention here too, Tom, is that the implementers on our team are your peers. So they're people who have worked at districts or they've served on boards, and you know, they have each of them personally implemented hundreds of Board Doc subscribers. So when you work with us during an implementation, your board and staff receive the benefit of that substantial expertise and all of that know-how that they've accumulated over those years of experience. So, you know, again, maybe I'll pause here one more time to see if there are any additional comments that anyone would like to add from the panel.
Yeah, David, that's a great point just on the experience level that comes with this. Ricardo, I know we were talking about some of your experiences leading up to the on-site.
Yes. Again, going back to Martha, she did study our agenda very well, and she kind of also already knew what were some of the areas where we're going to have to resolve prior to even starting the training, because when we got to those points, she pointed them out, and then she made suggestions, and we worked together to get to a point where we had something that worked for us. And so that type of customized system really helps you, the moderator, to provide something to your submitters that they are already familiar with, that it's not going to be that big of a change where they have to try to figure out what goes where or when do they do this or that. It's pretty much already set up for them so that they just either click or just fill in the blank. And that's pretty much it. So the tailoring is a very great benefit for everyone. And not only that, but on the viewer end, people are seeing the same thing that they are used to seeing prior to you going into Board Docs. So that to me is a big plus, and it makes for an easy transition. Like everything else, you know, there's a little bit of time, and you're going to get a few people who are going to, you know, kick and scream about the change or complain. But once you walk them through the system and they understand, they actually end up liking it and they actually appreciate it.
That's a great point, Ricardo. I know talking to so many folks out there that look at Board Docs, you know, you'll have an executive assistant that says, wow, let's do this. And then some folks will say, oh, I'm a little nervous about changing, right? I know you'll talk about that here in a little bit, but kudos to David's staff for helping make that change, which is tough for everybody, so much more easier and less risky in the client's minds. Well, great. I think, David, we have one more slide for you on support. This has just been so fantastic to hear from Ricardo and you, David, on this. Before we transition this slide, a question came up, which is a great segue, is, hey, our board meetings are in the evening. Does Board Docs have after-hours support available? David, do you want to take that and maybe talk through the Board Docs experience?
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. And that is something I had meant to cover on this slide. We do indeed have after-hours support available. We offer 24/7 support, 365 days a year. So if there are questions or concerns that crop up during a board meeting, there are people on staff who will be available to answer those calls for you. The support team itself is staffed by a group of courteous professionals. I don't think you'll find a finer support team anywhere. They all work directly for the company. There's no contracted support. And the other thing I think that's important to mention here too is that you don't need to rely on your IT staff or anyone internally for support related to your use of the Board Doc service. They can go about the important business of supporting your students in their use of technology rather than having to administer the system. And then one other thing I want to mention here too, Tom, is that regarding the support experience, there are no support tiers, which cause you to be handed off from person to person. You know how frustrating that is. We've all experienced that where you call, you get handed off to someone else. With Board Docs, the people you speak with are project knowledge experts who are well versed in all aspects of the product and who will answer your question directly and will see your issues through to resolution. So that's really an important part of the experience that we try to provide is that sort of one-touch experience where you're not going to be handed off time and time again, which, as we all know, can be extremely frustrating. Also, I alluded to this just a moment ago, but that support, just to reiterate it, is offered whenever you need us, day or night, 365 days per year. You can simply dial our 800 number and receive the assistance directly from a support specialist, or we also have an email address where you can send your question to and receive a response in that manner. Or if it's something that our support team feels that they might need to talk to you about to help you resolve your question or issue, they'll give you a call instead. So it's really great support. There are no limitations regarding who can call us, either from the organization. Anyone who needs assistance can simply dial us up and get someone on the phone to assist. You don't have to have a sort of a designated point person to call support. Again, it's open to anyone in the organization. And then one final point that I want to mention here, Tom, is that whenever you feel like you might need some additional coaching, refresher training perhaps on a Board Docs topic, that is available at any time and at no cost. It's part of your subscription. So if you feel that you need this additional coaching, you can simply call our support line to arrange for someone to reach out to you to schedule, one-on-one session to help coach you through your questions and help you master various aspects of the system that you may not be familiar with. So I guess in conclusion, Tom, I hope that helps to frame how our implementation support experience is unique and how it can help an organization achieve the success that it desires with the implementation of a board management solution.
Yeah, thank you, David. That last bullet is so important because we aren't nickel and diming. If you need to be trained, we want you to be trained, because if you're trained, you're going to understand the product better, which will limit the support calls very, very simply, right? So we offer that as a free service, and I see it so many times because Board Docs offers a variety of features. The number one goal might be to improve the way that the agendas are created, but then they see that, wow, the goal tracking tool would be awesome. Let's get trained on that. Well, you can get trained on that 3 months down the road if you need a refresher training. Ricardo, I know one of the things that you're excited about is the possibility of going to eGov Live, which is our subscriber session in which all of our subscribers who can come will get together. And David has an amazing amazing layout with different sessions for beginners to advanced. We even talk about our product roadmap and new things coming out. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience with Board Docs, what David just mentioned, and then also your thoughts on eGov Live.
Excellent. I'm still working on that eGov Live trip, so I'll let you know on that one.
Perfect. We hope you can make it.
Yeah. So, okay, so I'll tell you that our experience with having the contact support has been minimal, as I mentioned earlier. But the times that we have called, I mean, it's been very efficient, and there is no particular person that has to call. Like, it doesn't have to be me. I've had my coworker. She's called, to ask about technical stuff, which is more like fonts that are different than they are in a different item. That's the one I was referring to earlier. It hasn't been anything major that is a crisis that's going to throw your agenda into a crisis mode where you're going to have to go to a paper format. So that being said, being that it's minimal, the calls that I have made, I can tell you, I'll tell you a couple of them that I've made. One of them was because I was trying to figure out how to print an agenda without the date and the time stamp on it, and that was something that was so simple. I actually felt kind of darky after I hung up the call because it was something that was so simple. But they walked me through it and they smiled the whole way through. And the other thing that I called about was actually a few days ago. I got a phone call from one of our departments, and one of their items, I know that it was there because I had looked at that draft a few days before, and I know it was there, and for some reason that item was gone. And they called me and they were so worried. They're like, we can't find it, and it's not anywhere. So I looked in, the previous agenda, I looked on the following agenda, it wasn't there. So I called tech support and I asked, if they could help me find this item. And they said, sure, give me the title of the item. And they did what I thought I did, was do a search, and I didn't find it. But for some reason, they were able to find it, and it was sitting in a template of our agenda. How it got there, I have no idea, but I just have a feeling somebody accidentally clicked something and it just, sent it to that agenda. But, it was something that was resolved within less than 5 minutes, and everybody had their item back and everyone was happy, and we moved along. So it's that type of support that, is really helpful to us and really makes us feel comfortable with the system, and knowing that whatever the issue is, however difficult or simple it may seem, there is going to be a solution. So, like I said, I'm really happy with the response that we've had. And the one area that I'm really excited about learning more about is the strategic plan use through the board docs. And so I'm looking to get training on that in the near future and start utilizing that in the following school year.
Well, that's fantastic, Ricardo. Thanks for that feedback, that information. And with the strategic plan, that is something that's highly used by the district, by the superintendent's office. And in California, you can have all your LDAP goals up. So it's really easy to be able to audit and track those. So that'll be fantastic when we get you trained in using that. So, well, David and Ricardo, thanks so much. Really appreciate your background, David, and with that first pillar of support, which is so important to the return on investment to our clients and having a very easy experience. So thank you, David.
My pleasure, Tom.
Great. Well, let's move on to the second pillar, which is security. Security is another item that in the past really maybe was an afterthought when looking at a board portal. And I think many of the attendees are hearing with the hacks out there, the phishing requests out there, what's happened with the city of Atlanta, some very large school districts, small school districts alike. Security is becoming more and more of an issue and important. The great thing is that Ari Ioannidis has been thinking about security since day one when he created this in the year 2000. So this is nothing new to him. Ari, I know you're going to take us through some of your philosophies and thoughts on security.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom. So when we think of technology, we try and build on really the same principles you've heard from, everyone else today, from David and Tom. And we really try and understand and have empathy for the type of customer we're working with. And that's evident in the fact that a lot of the people, like David said, who you work with come from or have done the jobs that you're doing. Now, we try and do the same thing in security, in technology. So there's sort of three pillars to kind of piggyback on Tom's metaphor here. And those pillars really go into, we really want the system to be reliable, available, up and running. The second thing is we want all the data and everything you do to be secure. And the third part of that is we really want to meet people where they are and understand and make the technology simple and easy to use, understanding where people come from. So if we go back and talk about data security, it was something in the old days where we kind of were just trying to keep things safe and lock them up. And it's always a balance between making things available and make them secure. You know, the most secure system is one that's locked down, is not connected to the internet, and obviously that's not going to work. The challenge is, in today's environment, security is beyond just locking down the data and making sure it's secure. It's also making sure that everybody in your organization, when we went through our last bit of training, we talked to people about being personal firewalls. If we have access to that information, we want to make sure that that's cleaned up. And we've really upped our game. And one of the reasons is people say, what keeps you up at night? Well, what keeps us up at night is hearing about all these organizations that end up in the press. And I know that when we go to either an NSBA conference or an IISA conference or anything that's involved, we know what the other folks are doing, and we don't want to be one of those folks that say, oh, there was a data breach, or we shared your information with another organization without you knowing about it. So we work really hard, and that means, you know, more than just backing up data and keeping it safe. That means the integrity and privacy of your data have to be very important, and we take that extremely from everywhere your data sits to where it gets transmitted. It's encrypted, it's safe. And the nice thing is we've proven that over time. So we have a track record of over 10 years of keeping data safe. The other thing we need to make sure is that it's reliable, so that the environment where your data is stored, and we realize that's your data, is reliable, redundant, and accessible. So we actually have 5 copies, 4 live in real time, of everyone's data, all of our subscriber data. Any one of those can get blown away, or you may not be able to have access to them at any time. The other 3 are available. Then there's another kind of, we call it near-term storage, 5th copy of data. Soon it'll be 6, we're gonna double that, where the data's kind of sitting off to the side in live, totally replicated, ready to be accessed in case we need it. Then we take snapshots of that data every night, every weeknight. We don't do it every night because there's very little changes over the weekend. And we back that data up to what we call near-term storage. So, I mean, if you can imagine all of the BoardDoc subscribers, close to 3,000, having data, 5 copies of them sitting around that are basically live, that's amazing. Now, all that data has to be encrypted. So if I were to literally pick up a copy of your data and give it to you, you wouldn't be able to access it until you were able to de-encrypt that information. So we're very cognizant about how it's stored. Data is constantly under attack from foreign and domestic sources, and reactive measures are not enough. So a couple of years ago, we actually put in a new proactive algorithm that we continue to tweak. And if a vendor says they're not coming under attack, it's just not true. We are all coming under attack from foreign bad actors and even local bad actors. And the challenge is to identify who those bad actors are, block them, and still allow our subscribers to be able to get into their data. And I'm telling you, it's one of the hardest things we do in technology. And back to that proven track record, we're not always perfect, because the balance between giving people unfettered access to their information and blocking out the bad actors and keeping it safe is a very hard process. But I think we've done a very good job over the past 10 years in doing that. Any questions on the security and the private cloud?
Ari, that's fantastic. Appreciate you sharing that. A question did actually come up. Question was, hey, I understand there has been some issues with student data, just as globally, not with BoardDocs. But Ricardo and Ari, maybe you can start off, and Ricardo, you can give your thoughts on this. We have an answer for that with the executive, the admin, and the public content areas. Ari, if you want to maybe take us through your theme on that and why you built it that way.
Well, first, structurally, all the data in the system is encrypted. So, and we've recently gone to encrypting everything. So whether it's private data, public data, student information, employee information, you're buying land, all of it is encrypted everywhere where it sits. Matter of fact, now, starting last year, when the public accesses BoardDocs, we're even encrypting the data as it moves across the internet. Now, the cool thing is organizations can identify data, and a lot of times security is complex and granular, and you can make a mistake. Well, we understand that, you know, the IT people aren't looking over your shoulder, and you need to make it easy. All you have to do is say, this data is executive content. And when you call it executive content, we treat it much differently. It's still encrypted at the highest level that we encrypt at, but we don't allow the public or anyone who's logged in or administrators who are not explicitly allowed to see executive content to see it. So that would include your board members, your superintendent, folks like that. This simple role-based security makes it so easy for you to do things. And Ricardo will talk about it. You just put the information in this area, no one will ever see it. And unlike some other systems that are out there, where if you do a search, it'll find the name of it, you click on it, and it comes up and says not authorized. Now, we understand that your stakeholders don't like seeing that, and they'll start asking a lot of questions. So soon as it's put in that executive content area, it won't show up in any searches unless you're not allowed to see it. You won't even know that it's there, right?
Yeah,
Unless you're authorized to see the data.
that's great, Ari. And Ricardo, I know we talked about this. Maybe you can share with the attendees your thoughts on security in general, but also just those those 3 different content areas.
Well, I say this respectfully and with lots of love. It's people like Ari and our Chief Technology Officer, Derek. They live on a different universe, and they watch our backs 100%. They're our bodyguards. And this is the stuff. This is definitely not my area of expertise, IT stuff, but I do have a great appreciation for everything that they do, because it's all that is unseen and often goes unappreciated. But like Ari mentioned earlier, it's if you place something in a box that says, it's executive content, you are comforted in just knowing that it's going to be taken care of and treated as such. So, Ari, like I said earlier, I say that respectfully. You guys do so much more than anyone can ever see or hear about. But it is, at least on our end, it is very appreciated, and I feel very comfortable with the system. I know that this area of conversation took place with our technology officer and board docs, and it was not a conversation that I was a part of, because I would have had nothing to contribute to that conversation. But all I got was a green light from our CTO, and to me that told me that we're good. And believe me, if he thought for a moment that there was something that wasn't solid, he would have said, you may want to rethink this. And he did not. He was just like, go for it, do it.
Yeah.
And so I'm very comfortable with that. So thank you.
Yeah, and we go beyond just, keeping it safe while it's there. There are policies in place that don't allow even our internal highest end technology people to be able to access and see that confidential information. When it's confidential, it's confidential. And we don't store that. You'll never see it on our local drives. It sits in that very secure Board Docs ecosystem. So, I could spend really a day talking about all the security, the technology, the firewalls, everything that's in place to make it happen. But I think we can stand on that proven track record that we haven't had a breach in any of that information over the 12 years we've been doing this.
Yeah, that's amazing, Ari. That's great. And again, number 2 here with this pillar, security. For those attendees, if you're not thinking about security, definitely move it up on the priority list when you're evaluating board portal solution. Well, great. We've got about 15 minutes left. I know I want to make sure that we hear from Ari right now on the 3rd pillar, which is innovation, right? So you've got support, you've got security, but what is Board Docs doing to continue to innovate? And then after that, we're going to see from Ricardo a couple of the features that he likes best with Board Docs. So Ari, why don't you take us through your theme with it when it comes to innovation and where Board Docs is going?
Yeah, it comes from the basis that I'll say Tom, David, me, everybody on the team, we really try and study and understand this, what's going on for our subscribers. So that empathy is very strong. And all that innovation starts with that empathy and understanding what our subscribers are doing and how they access the information. Because otherwise we'll go crazy and invent these great cutting edge technological things that really our subscribers can't use. So that begins with, we understand most of our subscribers are better experts than we are. So Board Docs was initially developed in partnership with a superintendent and his board, and continues to be a community design solution. So that means over a decade of listening and innovation. And in the last 12 months, you see that we've issued over 12 update sets. So those are continued sets that have been released. That's almost one a month, and a big interface refresh in September. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about when we talk about innovation is, yes, we know we needed to improve our interface, but one of the things that a lot of people do is they innovate it so far. I mean, you know, Instagram did this recently, Facebook has done it in the past, and they really kind of tick their customers off. Well, you'll see that we came out with a new interface, and our customers actually loved it. I mean, we did surveys beforehand and afterwards to make sure that they liked it. We didn't go too far. We didn't go as far as we wanted to go. Now what we're doing is we're thinking that we want to go beyond just replacing paper. So we want to work with the experts at Diligent, our parent company, to design and deliver the next open solution. So going from just replacing your paper packet, like we talked about, to actually giving you some more tools in a fully immersive board management solution. That means goal tracking and actually tracking what eventually the administrators do with the actions that the board takes. So that's our next place. The other thing we want to do is realize that many of the people using Board Docs are digital immigrants. So they can get confused by an app doing something one way and being on an Apple and it looks a little different, and going to a Microsoft Surface and it's different, or going on an HP or using Mac OS. So we want to try and give that similar experience across all our platforms. And I kind of want to show you a little bit of what. My pleasure. And Tom, can I ask Ricardo just one question?
Yeah.
So, you know, he painted a great picture of, oh, look, I called tech support. I just really want to emphasize what a great job, you know, the support team, the customer service team does. Hey, Ricardo, when you called in, you dialed a number that was a 1-800 number, right?
Correct. Yes.
And did the person who answered your phone, I know you called the number and somebody answered your phone, did they ask you for an account number or for anything that you needed to know in order to be able to ask your question?
Nope. I just said, this is Ricardo calling from Redondo Beach Unified School District, and that was it.
And you asked your question, and did they hook you up with someone else, or did they just start helping you?
It was the same person, and he listened to what the issue was, and he started looking for the solution to the problem.
I just want to say that when I get a call a technology company, that never happens. And so when David put technical support together, it's like, what do we expect? That's kind of what I was talking about, understanding our subscribers. Look, you want to pick up the phone and dial a number and have like your friend answer and say, look, I'm having a problem with this, help me out. And that's really what we strive for. So thank you for painting that picture.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Yeah, thank you, Ari. Thank you, Ricardo. Well, great, Ricardo. We can see your screen, and you're going to take us through some of your most favorite features here.
Yes, and I don't know how many of the viewers are current subscribers, so they may be familiar with all of this, but for those who are not, this will be something new, and just kind of wanted to share a little bit about, you know, how the system looks and how we use it in our district. So this is the screen you get when you first log in, and then you have the option to go to your set meetings, or you can go to draft meetings. So here we have a draft meeting, and I just kind of wanted to share a little bit about the control that you have as the person that's in charge of the agenda. So when your submitters submit an item for approval, you will see what the item looks like in its draft format before their superior or the approval tree. It goes through the approval tree. So for example here, Rebecca Bostrom submitted this item. It's in workflow. It's a test sample item. It's unofficial attendance and enrollment reports. And so if I click on that item, I will see you know, her attachment, and you can see the attachment on the agenda as well with the little icon. And if you scroll down, you will see the workflow here, and you will see that Rebecca Bostrom submitted this item, and it's routed to Janet Riddell for approval, and it shows you the date and the time. Now I want to focus a little bit on this part of Board Docs, because this was a big issue for us prior to Board Docs. We would have departments that would submit items late or not on time, and it was very difficult for me to tell another assistant superintendent, hey, you're not getting your items in on time. I need you to get stuff in on time. So the crucial part for us in our district is my boss, the superintendent, is very supportive of timelines. And so we put out a schedule of when board items are due to the agenda from the departments. Once they're submitted and they're approved, we do agenda planning, we review. If there's minor revisions, they get to make those changes. But once that portion is done, they're done. So if an item is not submitted to me, when I print the agenda, this whole thing will print and it'll show that it's in workflow. So if in that group meeting, it shows everyone can see that it's in workflow and that the person hasn't approved it. I don't have to say anything, it's there. So my boss will look at it and see that it hasn't been approved. So if you're someone who's concerned about how, other people are not going to, be held accountable for submitting items, it's quite the contrary, because it's there and you can't remove that. It's there. And then once the person approves it, it'll show. And if the person is not there, let's say, Rebecca routed to Janet, and if Janet's not there, and if Janet's okay with the item, I can go ahead and force approve that item, and I can take it, and I can put it on, and it's final. And it'll say force approved by Ricardo Gallegos at the document publisher. So whoever's viewing this from the submitter side of it or staff, they can see that. And you can choose for the public to see this. We don't. This is only for in-house. So when your agenda is published, they will not see this. So this is just one of my favorite features, because it resolved an issue that we had in-house, and our flow is fantastic.
Ricardo,
And,
real quick, just a quick question for you. Some folks look at this like you have and said, wow, this is going to be great. Other folks that are executive assistants, board secretaries, they might look at this and say, ooh, you're going to take away control, and I like to control this because, I want to make sure the formatting is there and everything's correct. What do you say to those folks that might be worried about losing control?
Well, I would say it's quite the contrary. You actually have more because of first of all, the time stamping piece. But let me go a little into, I'm trying to get rid of the box here. Hang, give me 1 second. Move this. Okay. I'm going to go a little bit into the area of formatting. So what we have here is a master template. So let me go to my drafts. So this is what the submitters will see. There's only the June 26th meeting. I haven't put in the meetings for July through June of next year. So what I can do is I can go ahead and go into my temps, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that, and I'm going to give that to them. So I'll copy it as a draft. It'll ask me which sections I want. I obviously want all of them, and then I duplicate. So then here's the copy now. It has the June 14th date because that's when I did it, but all I will do is I will now go in there and I will give it the July 24th date that it should have. And then I just title it. And I always leave mine as master until we have a closed session time. And so now, once I save it, our submitters are able to submit items. So I submit the whole year. So if Educational Services wants to submit or prepare an item, that they can do that at any time throughout the year. So as far as formatting goes, let's say I want to do an agenda item. And this is reflective of what our format used to look like before. So it'll show you what the subject is, and it'll ask you for which meeting you want it on, which section. Is it an action item? Is it a consent item? These other boxes we don't utilize. You want budget source, you have recommended action, public content, and then you have your attachments. Your attachments are a breeze. All you do is click on here and you just select it like you would attach to an email or any other format of like PDF or Word. Not Word, we use PDF only on the attachment, and it's highly recommended, I believe, that it's PDF. So it's very easy to use. You can delete it just as easy. And then administrative content, this is more in-house stuff that the public will not see. but we keep all of our stuff in the public area, so everything is viewed by everyone. So this is the same setup that we've had in the past. So it is not any different as far as formatting. All they do is click into the box and they start typing. They can copy and paste from an old item that they have, that they can just don't have to retype the whole thing. So as far as format, I'm not sure, Tom, if that's what you were referring to.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you bring up a great point is the more that you can do within the system, the more secure your content is. Many systems out there require you to take the content out of the system, work in Microsoft Word, bring it back in, and we allow through some very easy to build templates with track changes within the system as well to easily be able to manage, collaborate, and go through a workflow within the system to keep versioning at a minimum as well. So many nice wins that you're illustrating here with the workflow of an agenda item.
Yeah, and the other thing that I like is this is in the ease of use for everyone. So for example, let's say my boss says, you know, I want the Pledge of Allegiance to be under reports to the board. All I do is just click on it, I drag it, and I just drop it, and it's there. It's done. Or if he says, I don't want it to be first, I want it to be the third thing, I'll take it and I'll make it the third item, and it's done. So that's the kind of ease of use that we all appreciate here.
Absolutely.
And we really like our products.
That's great. Did you have anything else that you wanted to show really quickly, Ricardo?
No, that's pretty much it.
Wonderful. Well, I know, just like Ari mentioned, he could spend hours talking about security. I know you could probably spend hours showing off your Board Docs portal as well.
Yes.
Well, great. Well, we appreciate it. I know we're at time right now, but wow, what an amazing session this hour has been. We have, if you have any other questions, folks, please feel free to either email Kristen Forsberg, who works with several of our school districts across the country, and then also Ricardo was kind enough to put his information up as well if you have any specific questions for Ricardo. Ricardo, this was great. Thank you so much for joining us today and taking us through your experience.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Again, thank you to David Adkins. Thank you to Ari Ioannidis for their wonderful insight. And again, to the Redondo Beach Unified School District and to Ricardo Gallegos for their time today. The three pillars, very important, folks. If you have any questions, you want to learn more, feel free to reach out to us for a personal demonstration so you can learn how security, support, and innovation can be a part of your success as well at your district. Well, thank you again, everyone. We appreciate your time. And until next time, everyone have a wonderful day. Take care.